there everybody, Cindy Daychak here with Queen Bee Creations, and it feels like forever since I painted a piece of anything. I've had loads of furniture still stacked up here, and with Christmas coming, I've been doing all kinds of crafts. So I've been excited for this. Now, granted, it's a small project, it's not a big dresser or buffet, but it is going to be my first opportunity to play with the paint inlays from IOD. So excited, so excited. But we have to do a couple of things before we get that far. This is an old cabinet, kind of shaped like a birdhouse at the top. I think it could be super cute. We just gotta take it away from the old brown. But because it's this dark wood, I think the odds of some bleed through are pretty high, and I don't want to go to all the trouble of adding the paint inlay and then having bleed through later. That would make me cry. So I'm going to take some precautions, and I'm going to start by using DIY Salvation Solution. This is a primer and a stain killer, so it's perfect. It does come in white and clear. Normally I would do this in white on this piece because I'm not going to be doing really any distressing back to the dark wood. And then the white in it would help give a foundation because I'm going lighter colors. But I've already got the clear open, and I just can't justify opening a different container. So I'm going to use the clear, and we'll see how it goes. So my first job is to paint it out with my Salvation Solution. Then the plan, because really you don't have to see me painting paint, because the main thing is spending some time with me when I'm doing the inlay, right? But the inside I'm going to paint in vintage linen from DIY, which is a little bit of kind of an old white. It's got a little bit of that aged look to it, so it's not going to be a super bright white. And then the outside in its entirety is going to be an apothecary. And that's what's going to serve as the background for our paint inlay. So the plan is Salvation Solution, 1 coat. Vintage linen on the inside, 2 coats, possibly 3 because it's the white. And then apothecary, I'm going to do 1, maybe 2 coats, and then come back at you because I'm going to have to add another coat of that. So that I have wet paint to do my paint inlay. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm gonna go ahead and start doing the painting side of things, and then bring you back on board when I've got all of those components done, so that we can have fun with the inlay, which is the whole point of this video. So stay tuned, because we're just going to get this all done, and the magic of video, you'll be caught up in no time. All right, we've got some color on this. Now, it has 2, kind of 3-ish. I did a 3rd thin coat in some of the spots. So it's got almost 3 coats of the white, vintage linen on the inside, and it's got 2 coats on the areas where I'm not going to be applying the paint inlay. I am going to apply the paint inlay up this side and the other. So it's only got 1 coat right now because I need to apply the paint inlay into wet paint. Now, I'm going to be using the Grisaille 12, and this part, wherever you see those figures, that's the paint. This part is just blank. So that's where you're gonna see my green color come through. And some of that will actually peel back off onto this. This is unlike any of the transfer products. This is a brand new to the market product. These sheets have real paint on them. And what we're going to do is, when this paint is wet, I'm gonna lay my paint inlay into it, right? I'm gonna want to have it in contact with the paint. I'll do that all the way up in a continuous line, and then I will lightly spritz this. So I'm gonna wet it just to make sure that all that paint gets activated. I'm not going to spend a lot of time pushing and mushing it because I don't want to smear the paint. I want a nice crisp image. And then I get to walk away and let it dry. But the first part is, this is, you can see these sheets are a continuous pattern. What I did discover is that these sheets, half of one is the exact size I need. So I'll be able to take maybe 3 sheets will go up here and cut them all in half and do one half on this side, one half on the other. So what I'm looking at doing is just wanting to make sure that I get them all, I get the right ones cut so that they all line up, and get them laid out so that I'm not futzing with that when my paint is wet. So I want to get them all cut and laid out so that I know which ones are going where, and I get the continuous pattern. The other thing that I need to consider, let me hold up one of these sheets so you can see, right? So this side, you can see all these grid lines. That's the back. This is the side with my paint on it. But you can see that the pattern only goes up to here. So what I also want to do is I want to cut off all of that edging, top and bottom, so that when I am laying the next piece, I'm able to overlap it exactly where my paint begins and ends, so that I don't end up with this big blank space in between my inlays. Does that make sense? So I want to make sure that it runs continuous. So I'm going to have to cut that off nice and flush to that to ensure that I can kind of line them up a bit, right? If it's not perfect, I can fix that after, and we'll talk about that. But I need to get those all trimmed off. So what I'm going to do off camera, because it's going to take a little bit of looking at all of these sheets and thinking about it, is I'm going to get all of those trimmed down and cut in half and have my 3 continuous pieces laid out in a row so that I can come back and you can be with me as I add them on. And I'll take you in much closer so you don't see me so much as you can see what I'm doing, because this is super cool and it's super new and you're going to want to know. All right, so let me figure out the logistics of it and I'll come back. Okay guys, here we go. I'm going to try and stay out of the frame, but who knows. I have these all cut up and I have them kind of laid out so that they'll flow down my board. That's my plan. I'm thinking I got it. Paint, I had to go for the paint. I'm thinking I got it right. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Okay, I'm so excited. I just don't want to mess it up. Okay, I'm gonna take that first one all the way up to the top, so it starts up under everything. And I want to have enough paint for it to grip to. And you know, this is the method for, I'm using DIY paint, so this is similar for any of the chalk paints, clay-based paints. I think there's exceptions for things like Fusion that's got a built-in top coat, because the drying times and the rules are going to be different. So that one, I don't think you leave it on until it's fully dry. But guys, I'm not telling you the how-to for that one because I haven't tried it. So this one, we're getting all of our paint on. We'll see how quick I managed to get these on. This is the tricky part. I want it up there, and I kind of want it even. And I want to kind of push it down into my paint. And it does wrinkle up, so. Okay, I'm gonna go futz after I get the rest on. All right, so I want to try and line these up. That's why I cut it nice and close, so it would. Get my next ones on. Yeah. All right, I'm getting wrinkles, but I don't know that that's a bad thing or not. So I have my paint inlay on, and now I need to just lightly spritz it. So this is a mister and not a sprayer. So I'm just lightly dampening it because I do want all that paint on the inlay to get activated. Now here's where I don't want to smear it. I don't want to be, I just want to make sure it's all in contact here. So that I can get that paint activated. I have a bit of a separation, a bit of a gap here, but I think, well, we'll see what it looks like later. I'll worry about it later. And because I've got another slide to go. Okay, I think that's on, and we're gonna leave it. So in this case, I'm gonna leave it to dry. So I want this to dry entirely, unlike some other paints, so I can let this sit. I want it to dry. It has to do its thing. Okay, now I'm overthinking, I think. Okay, I just want it. I'm just looking for it all to kind of have an even translucency to it. It gives you an idea of what it's going to look like, though. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing to the other side. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to come back at you, and we'll see what it looks like together. Okay. Okay, so this had a chance to dry completely, and then I just spritzed it again lightly. So you want to pull it off when it's damp, but you need to wait about 30 seconds. So I didn't want you guys to be waiting through that. And I'm just looking for a seam down there. And when we pull these sheets off, we want to set them aside, paint side up, because we can actually reuse them. There's still going to be paint left on there that we can use. Okay, let me put that off to the side. So here you can see that there's still some paint on there. So you can do the same treatment again with other projects to be able to use the paint that's still left on that inlay, but expect that it's going to be fainter, right? That it's going to be less paint on each time, each subsequent use of it. So you get a more faded and worn look, which is cool. So I am seeing a lot of texture on here. I didn't get perfect coverage here. So I think that maybe some of my underpaint had dried a little bit, but what I am gonna do is let this all dry, and then, come join me up here. I am going to let it all dry, and then I will lightly sand it just to even it all out. Okay. I had trouble with this, and I think it's because I didn't have enough paint on it, so I didn't get it adhering as well. So I ended up wetting the whole piece and then re-sticking it, and then leaving it to dry, and I didn't get back to it over the weekend. So this has been sitting here in its dry state since Saturday, and today is Monday afternoon. So we're just looking at whether we're gonna get this to peel off properly, and if I got some of the paint sticking. Oh, that's still dry. So all you want to do is moisten the back of it just to help it separate from the paint. And we got way better adhesion this time round, gang. And not so much on this one. I had major troubles with that one. But the top one is perfect. So start strong and fades. Start strong and fades. Okay, I'm gonna let all of this dry because then I have to do some sanding. So, you know, it's kind of textured where we've pulled the paper away from the paint. So we're gonna wanna do a light sanding to kind of smooth it all out. And then we'll see, because I got kind of a little bit uneven. This is great. This was my best, just saying. Then we'll see how much distressing. I do maybe want to take it down to the dark wood and around the edges. So I will be doing that, and we'll see how that goes. So right now, we just need to let it dry and then do some sanding. Okay, now that this is all dry, really what we want to do is just lightly sand. You know, you get sections where when you're pulling the paper back, the paint kind of pulls up a little bit with it. So you might have just kind of a few raised spots. So even if you're not planning on distressing the piece, you may want to just kind of lightly sand. This is a sanding block with most of the sand gone. And you just kind of want to sand to smooth it out. I mean, obviously you can distress more as you would want, as you would need to. But you're just kind of looking to smooth things out. Let me take this to the bottom a bit. I do want a bit more distressing on mine. Woo, okay. Turning everywhere. And mostly on the edges here. Yeah, I did a much better job at the top. Okay, and then get rid of all that sanding dust. And I'm going to wax my piece. So let me grab my wax and have you on here while I do that. I just want to show you kind of the look of this. It looks kind of worn and faded, and then, you know, that sealer is gonna bring out a little bit more depth to that DIY paint, right? We used Apothecary, and it's gonna darken it. It will lighten slightly as it dries, but not as pale as it was when it was completely dry, just because we've got that added. But you can see that it makes that pattern pop out much, much more. So I'm just going to wax the piece, let it dry overnight. I'll wipe it down and I'll let it dry overnight, and I'll kind of buff it up, and I'll stage it up to take a couple of picks. I think that my biggest learning on using the paint inlay is you actually want to have not super thick coat of paint, but you want to have, don't do a little tiny thin coat of paint. Make sure that you've got enough paint that you can stick the inlay down into it so that you've got a little bit of that happening. I didn't do that, and it caused a little bit of issues. I think that there just wasn't enough of anything for some of the paint to stick to, and that's why I got a little bit of patchiness. I'm okay with it because I was looking at this looking all worn and irregular and patterning anyway, but if you're really looking at having the paint inlay have kind of a nice all over even design, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have enough paint down to do that. I also had one sheet that I did the reverse, and there are grid lines. You guys can see them on the back. That's your bad side. So you want the other side to be stuck against here, and I somehow reversed it because you can kind of see the grid lines through it, and I had the paint sticking out. Obviously that's not going to work in your favor. So just make sure when you're putting it on, it explained why I thought that my patterning had gotten screwed up a little bit. That was my fault. That's not the inlay's fault. That's just not paying attention. So pay attention as you're doing it and it'll be okay. Now, I have all of these sheets that I have taken off. They're just here, they were drying on the floor. You can still see patterning. That means I still have paint on these sheets. So I am going to save all of these because I can use them for other projects. It might mean that they're gonna be much more faded. They're not gonna be as strong an image as this, but use them on projects and things where that kind of distressed look, that worn look is what you're after. So you can still get another like a second, possibly a third use out of these. So overall, I had a bit of a learning curve with these, but it's a cool look, and it definitely does not look like a transfer at all. So it's definitely a different look, and I'm looking forward to playing with it some more, and I think I've got it down. So I'm gonna have even better results, but I'm looking forward to even playing with these leftover pieces. So a little bit more paint, letting it dry. If you're using clay-based paint, letting it dry overnight actually did no harm. So I think that I was rushing the process a little bit too, so I'm just gonna leave it to dry and walk away and do other projects. And I think that'll help too. But yeah, give it a try, guys. I think that you'll have fun with it, and I think, again, you'll be pleased with the look of it because it definitely looks hand-painted. So looking forward to hearing about your attempts with this and how it goes. And in the meantime, take care.